Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of AUVSI, I'm pleased to welcome you to our third National Drone Safety Awareness Week webinar, Passion to Profession. How can you go from a recreational flyer to Part 107? My name is Jenny Rancourt, and I'll be your host today. Before we get started, though, I have a few housekeeping items to share. All participant lines will be muted for today's broadcast. A recording of the program will be emailed to all attendees and posted to auvsi.org in the next few days. If you're listening to the broadcast and need assistance, please send a note to AUVSI support using the chat box on the right side of your screen. If you do not see the chat box, please click that chat bubble in the very bottom right hand of your screen. This will open up the chat panel box on the screen. After the presentation, I'll open the session up for some Q&As. Attendees are encouraged to submit questions at any time throughout the webinar using the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. The questions will only be answered towards the end of the presentation. Please note, this is a different box than the chat, so please submit all content questions using the Q&A box. So, let's get started. We are so excited to have two fascinating women here with us today. Ashley Elfson from the Drone Racing League and Elena Buenrostro from Women Who Drone. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. First, let me introduce you to Ashley Elfson, the Chief Operating Officer at the Drone Racing League, the global professional drone racing property. A 2019 Synopsis Sports Top Woman in Sports and 2017 Connect Sports Game Changer, Ashley has been recognized for delivering and producing all of DRL's races from start to finish, bringing the sport of the future to life through complex, three-dimensional race courses in iconic venues across the globe. That's watched by thousands of fans and tens of millions of fans on premier broadcast networks worldwide. Prior to DRL, she served as the Vice President of New Event Development at Tough Mudder, where she developed and codified all of their event operation standards, including health and safety, vendor management, and live event on-site operations. With Drone Week's topic on passion to profession, feels fitting to be talking with DRL and Women Who Drone, which helped transform passionate drone pilots into professional drone pilots. Before we dive in, though, we want to orient everyone into what Drone Racing League is all about. So please take a look at this video on your screen.
Start line green.
Start line is green. Goggles down, doors up. Ready to red. Fire your drone, please.
This is DRL, the Drone Racing League.
That's incredible, Greg. Vanover's going for it.
Vanover ejects neck and neck.
Blade to blade.
What an amazing finish.
DRL combines live sporting events with custom drone technology to create the sport of the future. In just 4 years, DRL has held 38 global events across 22 cities in 6 countries, turning cultural landmarks, museums, palaces, stadiums, and arenas into real-life video games. The world's best pilots compete for the title of DRL World Champion. DRL events blur the line between sports and entertainment. High-speed racing is augmented by professional commentary and live pit crew action. DRL's proprietary video game flight simulator esports platform lets fans learn how to fly and race, and even compete to become a pilot in the next DRL season. At its core, DRL is a technology company. DRL designs and builds every piece of technology from the ground up. They're patented, proven, and world record setting. Our approach, combining real-life, world-class racing with technology innovation and best-in-class content production, lets fans and brands watch, play, and engage with DRL year-round. Welcome to the sport of the future.
I can watch that video over and over again. It's so exciting. Ashley, so let's start with you. It's amazing to see where you are now. 5 years ago, when the company was founded, DRL really transformed an underground hobby of drone racing into a global professional sports league. Can you share some background on drone racing and how DRL transformed it into a professional sport?
Yeah, of course. So excited to be here. That video brings back so many great memories. Cannot wait till we are able to produce live events again. So drone racing really grew up as a hobbyist kind of grassroots sport. We date it back to kind of the early 2010s. DRL came onto the scene in 2015 with the endeavor to really turn that into a professional sport. So we saw what everyone was doing. There were really great videos on YouTube, and how we did that was we really invested in the technology of drones and UAVs as the backbone of our sport itself. So we have a team of engineers as well as professional drone hobbyist technicians who help us build and manage our entire fleet of drones. We ship them around the world. And really wanted to bring that professionalism to the sport industry itself. Now you can see us on networks such as NBC, NBCSN. We stream on Twitter and on Facebook here in the US. And really doing that was through the investment we made in technology and innovation in-house.
Yeah, I know. That's so awesome because I've actually watched it on TV too. And then I was telling my husband, I'm like, I know that. I mean, not really, but I'm like, oh, that's yeah. I can't do it myself, but yeah.
We have a great tool to learn in our DRL simulator. So we are always investing in kind of teaching people how to fly and giving pilots and aspiring pilots the tools to learn to fly without having to worry about going out and crashing drone after drone outside, so that they can really develop that muscle memory before they get out there and kind of fly quads in the real world.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And we'll get into more details of that later. Elena, hi. I don't know how she does it all, everyone, but Elena is a content producer, certified drone pilot, international speaker, actress, and founder of Women Who Drone, which is an online platform and community that inspires, educates, and empowers women and girls with drone technology. What started out as curiosity turned into a hobby and now a career and a passion. 3 years ago, Elena founded Women Who Drone. Like I said, it inspires, educates, and empowers women and girls through content curation, pilot spotlights, drone education, career opportunities. Women Who Drone is definitely helping to pave the way for women in the growing drone industry. Elena, can you also share some of your background, how you made the move to hobbyist to a professional, and how that inspired you to create Women Who Drone?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first off, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you and Ashley. So yeah, as you mentioned, I have a background in content production. I've wore every hat in production, from, PA to director to being on camera to producing to editing content. And then one day I wanted to go hike the Great Wall, and I knew I needed to make a video, but capturing the Great Wall is quite a feat. So I did research, came across drones, and realized I could put my camera in the sky, and it was sort of history from there. Taught myself and went to the Great Wall, captured content, and then continued to fly drones, and realized there was a bit of a gap in the industry in terms of women. So I wanted to really figure out a way to connect more women who were flying drones so that they could answer each other's questions, share their stories, and then started Women Who Drone in October of 2017.
That is so awesome. And to give our audience a glimpse of your world, let me play a video from Women Who Drone.
Hi, I'm Elena, certified drone pilot and the founder of Women Who Drone. Women Who Drone is an online platform and community that inspires, educates, and empowers women and girls with drone technology. I am an aerial cinematographer and photographer, and I capture the world from above. Before, it would take a lot of money and a lot of time to hire a helicopter to do such shoots, but now we're able to use this innovative technology to just place our cameras in the sky and capture these incredible videos. I think the drone industry is pretty exciting because it's not only growing, but you're combining two different worlds, technology as well as creativity. I had always had this dream to hike the Great Wall of China, and I decided that I wanted this to be my first solo trip. I knew I was going to make a video as a professional video producer, but I wasn't too sure how. So I started to do some research and I came across drones, and I realized that this was a new tool to capture the world in a whole new way. When I put my drone in the sky, I literally felt like I was on top of the world. I fell in love with what I saw, and that really just started my entire drone journey, passion, and career. I came to New York about 1.5 years ago, and I started Women Who Drone. We have a global community of women who are connecting with each other and answering each other's questions and sharing content on a daily basis.
Great, let him go. Now go up on this left joystick. Good.
As a Latina and a female in the drone industry, I would say it's very rare to see us. Oftentimes when I go to schools to teach them about drone technology, I walk into the room and I have a drone and the girls have these faces of they're not interested. As soon as I tell them my story and I show them all of the content that I've created with a drone, they become intrigued. And I think that it's important to have role models who are in a career that they never even considered. The more and more we reach out to younger girls and we teach them about drone technology, but we also share with them our culture and where we grew up, the more inspired they will become by hearing stories that they can connect to from women like themselves.
Thank you, Elena, for that video. Yeah, Women Who Drone is definitely on a mission, for sure. So where do you find your members? I know you're an international group with brand ambassadors all around the world. How do you find them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So initially it started with a hashtag on Instagram, and that was just really out of my background as a content producer. I was posting all of my content on social media. And so I started this hashtag Women Who Drone, which then at the time no one was using. And now I think we're nearing about 60,000 tags, and a lot of women from around the world were using that hashtag. So from there, we started our Facebook group, which then led to, a little bit going a bit backwards. We used that hashtag to start curating content shot by women globally. And then from there, we connected with the women through our social channel, and then started connecting them to each other in our Facebook group, which is where we have that interactivity between women who are flying drones globally.
Man,
so social media.
Yeah, I was just going to say the power of social media. Man, holy cow. So Ashley, talk to me about the DRL pilots. Where do you find them? Who are they?
DRL pilots come from all over the world. We find them many different avenues. So we have a team, we're scouring YouTube, Instagram, social media to kind of see who's got the latest videos that are really exciting. A lot of people, and Elena, I'm sure you know about this, will go out and set up a course in a field or a nearby park, and they will do grassroots races and kind of race each other on a daily basis. And so we look to a lot of the pilots that are winning and kind of coming up through the ranks and more of the grassroots. We also host an annual tryouts competition on our DRL simulator. So anyone in the world who can download the sim has access to that, and they can compete for a spot in our league.
How nerve-wracking, but how exciting. That's so awesome. Elena, have you tried this simulator that she's talking about? Have you seen it?
Yes, I have actually. And I recently, well, not recently, it's been a little bit over a year, got into drone racing, FPV drone racing. I actually have like a number of my drones on my wall right now. Here's one. So I did start off with trying to really understand the simulator. And then, it's interesting because when you start off with your drones, there is a lot of crashing involved. I have been to these parks and met up with some FPVers in Brooklyn, New York, and it's really exciting to just meet the people who are in the community. But yes, the simulator really helps so that you're not constantly crashing and destroying your drone, because it is quite a difficult thing to learn. It's very, very different from your consumer drones, your DJI drones where they hover. These drones are going to fall down if you don't have your fingers on the sticks. So lots of practice is needed, and the simulators are very helpful.
Yes, no, I could have definitely used that before I flew in Las Vegas, where there's nothing around. This is an airport, a spotlight airport, I believe it's called. Nothing around except for jackrabbits who you chase, which is really, really fun. But leave it to me to hit the one pole in the desert. I mean, yeah. So I'm really gonna think I might get my son an Xbox so we can maybe for him download the sim for him.
Yeah, I'm actually excited to try it out on Xbox. I don't have an Xbox yet, but I'm hoping maybe that's what I'll get for Christmas, and then I can, try the simulator on there.
Yeah, awesome. So Elena, how do you work to achieve your mission? What made you so passionate about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've always been really passionate about diversity, especially for women within a number of industries. Starting off with video production, I used to teach at the Girl Scouts it was called Girls Empowered to Make Movies. So I would teach Girl Scouts how to make movies. So I've always had a passion for that area. But when it comes to drone technology, I think really just understanding that need from the start. When I started flying drones, I just had so many women reaching out to me across social, asking me all these questions about how they should get started, what drone they should buy, how I got started, and my story. And I realized I was probably not the only one flying drones out there. And I definitely didn't have all the answers to these questions. So I really wanted to figure out a way to connect women who were flying drones, but then also encourage women who might be interested, but they need a little bit of a push. And, we're a true believer that stories inspire people. And so if we can share more stories, that's what's really going to get people to pick up that piece of technology. So, we started there, and then we started workshops and lessons and started really teaching people how to fly the drones, and then moved on to careers and sort of the Part 107 preparation.
Right. No, I think that's awesome. I'm a manned pilot. I've been a manned pilot for a long time, and a Part 107 pilot. So aviation is my passion as well, and I'm very passionate about girls in aviation. I even named my daughter Amelia after Amelia Earhart.
I love it. I love it.
So now she's 6 years old, and no pressure at all to get her into aviation. No pressure, but whenever there's an airplane flying over, she knows to look. So.
That's amazing. I love that.
So speaking of Part 107, let's talk about Part 107. For recreational pilots looking to get their Part 107, how can the Drone Racing League help them, Ashley?
Yeah, so we have been working with the FAA and very closely alongside them really since we started. And so when the Part 107 rule came out, within the first year that DRL existed, we knew that we would have to get our pilots on board. So from our pilots' perspective, we have equipped them with a lot of training tools and websites and sent them to courses to make sure that they are being the right example for the community. We have pilots from all over the world, and we ask every pilot, whether or not they're based in the US, to get their Part 107 so that they can fly safely inside. Our simulator, while it doesn't give the kind of knowledge-based information, is a really great complement to the Part 107, because we have kind of identified this gap where the Part 107 will test whether you know kind of the rules of the sky. And we want to make sure people also know how to fly and operate a drone. Anyone can open a book and study really hard and go out and take and pass the test from where we stand and why we're pushing the DRL sim and continue to expand that onto different consoles and platforms and get it into more people's hands is really to teach that flight competency so that you don't have people going out and kind of just crashing drone after drone. We really want to ensure that people know how to fly.
No, and that's awesome. And that's, yeah, it's truly important. There's a huge gap still because the FAA does not require a practical flight assessment. I remember back in the day when I used to have an FAA check ride, it was nerve-wracking, but it has to be, no one's going to trust me to go in an airplane without someone checking me off. No way. So yeah, definitely learning how to fly. And even if you're a manned pilot like myself, I will admit I was a little cocky. I'm like, I can fly planes, I can fly a drone. Boy, was I wrong. You have your senses stripped from you, really. I mean, in a manned aircraft, you can see outside, you can hear the engine, and you can feel the turbulence. You have all your senses, but with drones, nothing. So, Elena, how can women who drone help those who need that push, not only to become certified, but to gain that valuable education and experience?
Yeah, so again, going back to those inspiring stories and just sort of sharing our pilot spotlights and the stories of women globally and what they're doing with drones, whether it's like from a career perspective or from a personal perspective. But we have a lot of women who are using drones for real estate. Like I said, we have an FPV drone pilot who actually recently taught a workshop for us. But really, it's first sharing those stories to give them that push. And then, of course, once they have that motivation, we have resources on our website that they can tap into. So we have Altitude University Drone Pilot Ground School to really prep for that Part 107 course. And then we offer resources on our blog just in terms of how to, look up airspace. We recommend Kitty Hawk before you fly so that they understand, even if they're still recreational flyer, they should know at least what airspace they're in to ensure that they're flying in the right airspace and not interfering with manned aircraft.
Right, absolutely. They need to know the regulations. They need to know that wherever they are in this world, they're in airspace. When you launch that drone, you're in some kind of airspace, and you need to know that it could be dangerous. It could be fine. Here in Nebraska, it's fine. In DC, maybe not so much. So do you think that, this is just a question I thought of. You think our next generation, the Nintendo players, the Xbox players, do you think we're being replaced by a generation of cadets with basic flight training and hours for hours of video game time? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you think that generation, you think that we'll be looking more for how many gaming hours do you have? How many drone simulator hours do you have through DRL? Do you think we're headed in that direction?
I think the simulation and kind of with that way of learning how to fly is supplemental. I think at the end of the day, you have to still get out there. You can never perfectly simulate the wind, as an example. So there are going to be so many environmental variations based on where you are, what time of day it is, that would be challenging to simulate 100% perfectly. One of the things I love about FPV, it often gets compared to real life video game. I love that it actually brings you outside. All of our pilots are constantly going out and flying around mountains. They are in beautiful scenery. Like, they're not just sitting in a basement playing video games. It's something out into the world, which I think is a really cool aspect of FPV generally, and as well as our sport.
Well, it's kind of a sweet escape from your reality too, which we could all use now. I was looking at some of the videos from the U.S. Air Force DRL flight school by DRL pilot Nork, I believe. And I've been trying to study inverted yaw spins. And thank goodness there are simulators out there, because Nebraska ain't safe if I try inverted yaw spins out here. So no, you're absolutely right. You have to know the regulations. Next month is December. The FAA is talking about remote ID, maybe, hopefully next month. So stay tuned. We'll see. So what makes the DRL sim one-to-one with real life flying?
So we've invested a lot from day one. We wanted to get as real to life physics as we could so that it gave you that true flying experience. So we worked with Georgia Tech and some professors down there to kind of test and validate all of the equations and the back end physics. We also took our drone to a motion capture lab in, I think, Portland, Oregon, where we put the little white bubble dots on the drone, flew it around in a motion capture studio, and tied that back into the programs that would make an animation from a person to validate it and ensure that that was going as close to real life as possible.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And the videos that I saw, it's really kind of real life. And it puts things in a huge new perspective of how talented and skilled these DRL pilots are. Good gracious. So Elena, I know we talked a little bit about inspiration being part of your mission. Can you tell us more on how Women Who Drone is inspiring the next generation, like my Amelia, on female drone pilots?
Yes, absolutely. And it's probably one of my favorite parts is we actually go to schools and we teach girls how to fly drones. We introduce them first from that inspiration stage. We walk into the classroom, we show them some videos, as you saw in the video that we shared earlier. And at first, again, they have no interest, but then once they see these stories and they see these women flying drones, they see the content that could be captured with a drone, it sparks their interest in wanting to pick up the drone. Then we go outside, we teach them the basics, how to launch the drone, how to put the props on, how to charge the batteries, and then we let them go on a full flight. And, from there, I think those are really go hand in hand is, first sharing stories, sparking an interest, and then getting their hands on the technology, having them experience what it's like. And then from there, showing them what they shot and showing them the content that they captured so that they can really, walk away with something that's tangible. So we are partnered with we're approved by the Department of Education in New York City to implement drone curriculum into the classrooms. And that's something that we are hoping to actually get kickstarted. It was delayed, unfortunately. As you all know, school is not the same right now. So we're really figuring out new avenues and pivoting the way we're going to get this kickstarted virtually. But that is one thing we are doing to inspire the next generation of female drone pilots.
That's awesome. I love that. I love how you're actually going to the girls, because when I tell, my kids about it, they're like, But when they actually get their hands on it, it's a completely different story. And then you see the videos online, and they're like, "Oh my God, I want to do that." I want to go to the Great Wall of China. Maybe not now, but you know what I mean. I want that. I want that picture. It's game changer. So when you look back at the last several years, what are the biggest accomplishments in learning DRL and Women Who Drone have had? Ashley,
let Ashley go first.
The past 5, we have done so much over the past 5 years. I think if you look back to 2015, professional drone racing wasn't really a thing. It wasn't on TV. Very few people even knew what drone racing was. And so I think to have brought that to the masses, and for us even to be here talking about it in this forum, is a really big deal and a huge accomplishment to just make more people aware. I'm incredibly proud of the technology that we've built and really using that as the foundation to propel the company forward. We employ engineers, technologists, people who probably never thought that they could work in the drone industry, in the sports industry, and entertainment. And we have done some really exciting things with the drones that we race in our events, to the systems that we use to keep everyone safe, set a Guinness World Record amidst all of that. And so I think just making drone racing kind of into the public eye and more knowledgeable, and that's only going to continue to grow.
More knowledgeable, public perception,
Yeah.
building blocks. Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Elena?
Yeah, so I mean, we just had our 3-year anniversary, and if you told me 3 years ago that I would be running a female drone pilot community globally and doing all the things that we're doing, I wouldn't have believed you. So it's been quite a journey and really exciting at that. I think, number one is just building a community of women who are connecting with each other and doing it on their own account. We have our Facebook group. It's facilitated by our team, but these women are really taking the conversations into their own hands. And prior to COVID, they were meeting up with each other and flying. So I'm definitely most proud of the fact that we've brought these women together by this common interest. And then secondly is just the partnerships that we've developed over the years with DJI, who provides the drones for our workshops. We have a content partnership with Getty Images to give our community the opportunity to monetize their content through our Women Who Drone collection. So that's been really exciting and a great thing, just a great opportunity we've been able to offer our community. Our partnership with Altitude University to bring this Part 107 resource to our community. Our workshops, which are no longer in person, and this year we've really pivoted to virtual. So we've been really focusing on how we can teach our community about drones, but how they can use certain softwares for their drone. So whether it's mapping or introduction to simulators and FPV drones, or how to use your drones in real estate. We've been really trying to figure out new ways to educate our community and just to continue the education, whether it's in person or whether it's virtually. So probably a few more things I could list, but just, I think those are the top ones.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank goodness for technology, virtual learning environment. We can all do it. We're doing this right now. I think, Elena, you're in San Diego, Ashley, New York, and I'm in the cornfields of Nebraska. So yeah, I mean, it's all possible. If there's a will, there's a way, right?
That's right.
We can't complete this webinar without talking about the main focus of Drone Safety Awareness Week, which is safety. How is the Drone Racing League ensuring drone safety, both from an FAA and a COVID standpoint?
Safety is one of my favorite topics. My background in live events and mass participation events have had to devise kind of safety plans for how do you protect the public that's coming to watch, to how do you ensure that your participants are in a safe environment. So that's always been number one priority. We are dealing with drones that go from 0 to 60 right off the start podiums. And we always knew that we wanted to have tens of thousands of people live on site watching. So those two things, you need to be thinking about how do you ensure that the drones are not intermixing with the people there. So really from day one, we were solving problems left and right of what do you do? How do you protect the audience with tens of thousands of feet of netting, and how do we ensure that our camera operators, because we film our own TV show with camera operators that we work with directly, they need to be close enough to the action to capture the images, but we need to ensure that they are protected. So we've devised a lot of systems for that. We've also worked really closely with our engineering team to develop a proprietary race management system, which allows us to effectively control the drones outside of the pilots. So our race control will arm and disarm the drones directly. We can turn them on and off. We see which radio channels they're on, so we can ensure that if something doesn't look right, that we can actually take control away from the pilot to ensure that we always have eyes that are seeing the entire picture. From a COVID perspective, that has been a very big topic of conversation in our 2020 season. We unfortunately were not able to have large live audience events this year. We've been very fortunate in that we had invested in our simulator from day one. And so we have transitioned our entire season to a virtual season. And so everyone is at home. We're doing a complete remote production. It is 40 crew and staff members and our pilots that are all delivering content and racing from the comfort of their own living room.
That's amazing.
It's really wild. It's very cool what everyone has done to kind of navigate that. Drone racing as a sport, luckily is well equipped to navigate kind of social distancing. So when we do get back next year with in real life events, it hopefully is easy because we can more easily separate the pilots. There's no physical contact between them. So we are actively planning for what is our return to IRL plan for our events.
Nice. I hope so. Yeah. So what's next for each of you? Elena, start with you. What's next?
Yeah, well, just to first off piggyback on drone safety, that's definitely one thing we always make sure that we're doing at the start of these workshops and at these lessons, and always share a number of resources to anyone who shows up for our virtual workshops or our in-person workshops when those were happening. As far as what's next, we're all living in a different world right now, really adjusting to the new normal. And I think it's the same for us. We're still kind of working through how we continue our education. So definitely we are continuing virtually our workshops, figuring out new topics that are really going to enhance the skills of current drone pilots. Again, our education for young girls, what does that look like moving into 2021? How can we really plan for something that is virtual while we figure out when they're going to go back to school? So we're really focusing on education, continuing, of course, always our inspiration with our daily content, and then working with more companies to figure out what are these career opportunities out there for women, and what does that look like?
Right. Absolutely. What about you, Ashley? What's next?
Most immediate next is we air live for the first time tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBCSN, Twitter, Facebook. So we're in the midst of qualifying rounds as we speak for that 2 levels that will be airing tomorrow night. We have a new partnership with DraftKings. So we're introducing a free-to-play pool, which is incredibly exciting. You can compete to win up to $1,000 within that. And we have a lot of really exciting partnerships that we're going to be announcing later this week.
Oh, that's exciting. In the immediate future. I like that. I love it. Awesome. So what advice do you ladies have for people wanting to turn their hobby into a career?
I think there is so much out there that you can use drones for. Certainly, you never would have expected that it would be a sport. It's used in crowd control, insurance, real estate. The options are really endless, and it is just a wide open field for the future. And so it's really exciting, and I would encourage everyone to kind of expand their mind of what you can do with drones. The first thing you need to do is learn how to fly. So I think from our standpoint,
that's a good start.
I love the sim, but the options are really endless. If you know how to do it, it is in very, very high demand right now. So really excited to see where it goes with everything over the next few years.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Elena? What advice do you have for the hobbyists out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say along those lines is there are very many fields where drones are being used. So really, if you want to transform that hobby into a profession, it's important to find a niche and start somewhere and practice and really figure out your skill set there. You can start, as a photographer, videographer, really nail that down and get skilled there, then move on to mapping and really enhance your skill and understand the programs and softwares that are out there for mapping. I sort of took that route, started with content, learned about mapping. Over the last year, I've been practicing FPV droning. So, and I'm still learning. I actually just, started studying for ground school for my private pilot license. So I also have a degree from you that was really inspiring. So I think, just continue to, find a niche, master it, do as much as you can, practice, and then move on to the next skill and keep going. Because drones are every single day, people are finding out new ways to use drones.
Yeah, I hear you. Absolutely. So let's open the session up to audience questions. For everyone out there, you may submit a question using the question box in the right corner of your screen, or if you're viewing the program in full screen mode via the toolbar at the top of your screen. Type your question and hit the submit button located next to the box. And we already got some questions in, so are we ready? So question number 1. What do you recommend doing to get real world flying experience without spending a lot of money? Oh, yeah.
The number one story I hear from new pilots is that I got a drone and I took it out to fly the first time and I crashed into a tree and it got stuck, or I flew into a pool and now I'm dead. So again, I keep going back to the sim. Like, I have learned to fly not expertly, but like our pilots, but it is something that is really helpful to get just some muscle memory on the sticks before going out to fly in real life. And then from there, kind of do your research, make sure you're going to the areas that are where you're allowed to fly. New York City, we obviously cannot fly anywhere here. So make sure you understand kind of rules of the air as well, so that you are not in anyone's airspace that you shouldn't be.
Yeah, definitely. Elena, what do you recommend to get real world flying without spending tons of money?
Yeah, so I guess I would sort of ask a question back on how much your budget is.
Yeah,
if we're talking
very
about,
true.
less than $500, or if we're talking about less than $100. If let's go on the cheaper end, you can buy $100 Tello drone, which is what we take into the classrooms to teach the girls, and really started there to give them the idea of what it's like to fly a drone and get your hands on the sticks, but also not, the drone still hovers and it does some cool flips and it gets you really excited.
Right.
And then once you sort of learn, okay, this is how it looks for $100, and you want to take that drone outside and capture some real content, you can get, a DJI drone for about $300, or used maybe a bit less than that.
Right.
So it really depends on what your budget is. But yeah, these consumer drones, they're very user friendly. So I tell my students, they're actually quite difficult to crash nowadays because they have the obstacle avoidance features around the drone. So, unless you're flying through a forest, if you're in open air, you should be okay. So long as you calibrate, you are flying in good a Class G airspace, you should be able to practice quite easily.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also the sim, I believe it's $9.99 to download.
It is. Yes.
Not that I've been looking into it or anything. Let's move on. Okay, so regarding Part 107 and FAA regulations, do you see the additional growth in the sub 250 gram area as an enabler to get more STEM programs and women into this sector? Obviously, understanding the regulations are essential, but it can also be a hurdle to get more people using drones. So I guess the question is, do you see the additional growth in the weight, in the drone weight, as an enabler to get more STEM programs?
That's a great question, and from my personal opinion, I don't know if it's really necessary, because, the weight factor is there for a reason. For the most part, I would say safety. But I think, bringing it into schools, you don't necessarily have to be Part 107,
right?
Or the students don't have to. I think introducing the technology is a start, and the weight factor is really not, I don't think it's as much of a hurdle as we might think it is. So I'm not sure if I'm answering this question in the right way, but I would say that we could work and implement STEM programs without, having that as a true factor.
Yeah, which brings me to my next question. What drone do you guys recommend for students, the beginners?
Yeah, so I would say, just from my experience, that and also from a price point perspective, and I guess it would depend as well on how, what grade these students are, but bringing in those Tellos, you can code with them. which is a big factor of understanding how the drone works internally. So those are really great. They're $100. You can bring them into classrooms. You can fly them in the classrooms in group settings, or maybe go to like a gym or something, and then really get their hands on the sticks, understand, pitching, rolling, yawing. And then from there, maybe next semester, you jump onto some of the consumer DJI drones. It could be the Mavic Minis, or maybe the Mavic Pro 2s, depending on, budgets. But that's what I would recommend.
How about you, Ashley?
So, I mean, we have a few different options. Sim, obviously, you can actually build your own drone. So you can
you have
go
different ones, I noticed, and they all fly differently too.
Exactly. So that was part of exactly the effort we went through with Georgia Tech was, how do you apply this to any size, any frame? We have, I think, 10 different types of frames. You can choose the motors, the props, the camera, the color. So it really is meant to give like a true simulation of a lot of different types that you could use out in the real world to give you that experience before you take it outside.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of STEM programs, do they begin in middle, high school, or both? Question from the audience.
We've been to middle schools and high schools. The middle schoolers are just as interested in drones as the high schoolers. And I think from the video we showed earlier, that was actually a lot of the students in that video were in middle school. So 7th and 8th grade, we've taught them, and they're really interested. So I think, the earlier you can share this drone technology to students, the more inclined they will want to, sort of think about that as a career. But also you can get a Part 107 when you're 16. So they can start studying.
Absolutely. That's right. So in the education curriculums discussed earlier, are topics of agricultural drone use being asked for or discussed? If so, any insights into how a student can follow an interest in agricultural drones?
Yeah, so I can sort of speak to that. So when we go into the schools and we share those stories I mentioned earlier, we share stories of women who are using drones, not just for content, but also for mapping and what mapping is. We have not brought a specific workshop about mapping to the schools, but we do share the different use cases that they could enter with, or they could use drone technology for. But at a very basic level, we're showing them how to use it for photos and videos, but also introduce what that looks like from an agricultural perspective. Now, I guess if I, just because our programming has come sort of to a halt this year, but I would say that partnering with schools, they're really interested in the different types of programs and sort of like a 4-year track. So we've discussed, okay, what does it look like from, 9th grade, very introduction to content, then moving on to 10th. It's like, what are the other options we can use with, what are the other things we could do with drone technology? Is it mapping? And then 11th grade, move on to studying and prepping for your Part 107. And then senior year, start doing some of those projects.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the world's the limit. I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, not only agricultural, which may interest a lot of people, for example, here in Nebraska, but also public safety is huge. I mean, what these drones are capable of doing, what humans are capable of doing with the drones for public safety. You have pipeline inspections. You have all sorts of stuff. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, or a lot of students realize that, oh, I'm going to learn how to fly a drone. That's it. No, there are pathways to a world beyond that. Definitely. So another question, what is a challenge faced with integrating drone curriculum in the classroom?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say the challenge is definitely getting the teachers on board with the technology.
Really? I did. Okay.
I mean, that's just one of the challenges, but I think also another challenge is having enough help in the classroom to teach,
True.
20 plus children, or if they're not children, or I would just say teenagers or students, whatever age group they might be. But, we start off with training the teachers and helping them understand the drone technology. But then when we go into the classrooms we don't necessarily want to have 1 to 20 students with drones, especially because they could, be dangerous depending on the drone that you're using. So having enough help and having assistants in the classroom who know what they're doing, who understand, how not to crash the drone. And so, it's just getting the training in place for the teachers first, and then understanding, what is going to be that ratio within the classroom. We typically want to have it at least 5 to 1, so 5 students to 1 assistant. And so I think the challenge is just, getting that help and finding the resources.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we've encountered similar challenges. One of our favorite things to do with our pilots is when we go to a new location, we'll do something with local kids groups or with schools. We'll bring people on site, give them kind of a tour of the event and get to see behind the scenes. And we do an actual drone build from kind of scratch up to a drone that the pilots will hover. And that's exactly one of the challenges we run into as well, with you really don't want more than kind of 6 or 7 maybe students in per pilot, because otherwise it's really hard to see. You don't get that kind of individualized attention. It's such a level of detail and kind of step by step that's required with the building of the drones, that you really do just the volume ratio, it's a great problem to have. We want more people to be really interested, and the more we train them, the more they'll be there. One of the things we're doing to kind of help with that is with DRL Academy. We are doing a series of educational videos and just trying to get as much content out there so that the access is available to students, especially in this environment where everyone is virtual and it's hard for us to sit together and get that hands-on experience.
No, absolutely. And that brings me to another question. Someone wants to confirm Xbox has the drone racing simulator, because I mentioned Xbox. Is it available anywhere else?
Right now you can get it on Xbox and on Steam.
Steam. Okay. All right. Awesome. Moving on. While safety is key, how do you approach conversations and understanding of privacy when using drones with the younger generation, as well as new pilots, including the racing pilots? Good question.
So what we at our events are all, they're all closed set. So when we are at a venue or at a location, we are paying attention to kind of where we're going so that we are in an enclosed space, so as kind of not to obstruct or go places we should not be. With our audience, we're very explicit about kind of, this is what we do, here's how we're filming. We are going to be broadcasting races on TV shows globally. And so we're very sensitive to how we're using our content and making sure that there is a level of transparency there with where that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Elena, what do you think? How do you approach the conversations, especially with the kids, middle schoolers, high schoolers, about the privacy and safety?
Yeah, absolutely. So that, again, when we start off our lessons and our workshops and our drone education, we always start with safety first. And that is a part of the safety brief, is understanding the fact that you should not be flying over people. We always recommend flying 150 feet above so that we're not close to people. Of course, the first thing is flying in areas where there are not people, so that we're not making anyone feel uncomfortable. So these are things that we absolutely call out from the start before we even hand out the drones for the girls to sort of understand what that looks like and the basics of them. So it's definitely from the start, we're briefing them on airspace, we're briefing them on regulations, and then sort of why you should not fly over people, and why it's important to find a very open space when you're practicing and you're new.
Yeah, I agree. Where can I get a drone kit? Someone's asking. I know we've talked about what kinds of drones. Where can I get a drone kit?
So I guess it would depend if you want an FPV drone kit, a drone racing kit, or just a drone kit
Right.
that is
It all
like straight out of
depends.
the box. And also your budget. I mean, you can find small drones, just on Amazon. The Tello you can find on Amazon. You can go to the DJI website to get us, a full kit with the batteries. A few extra batteries. I just got the Mavic, what is it, the Mavic Mini or the Mavic? Yes, the Mavic Mini. And then I know there's a number of options for FPV drones too, since I have a few here hanging on my wall.
They're so colorful. I love them too. Let's see. I think we have time for one more question. Women Who Drone, do you, Elena, have a recommendation for a curriculum for STEM using drones?
Yes, so we are actually in the process of developing curriculum that could just we could offer to teachers. That's available on our website. If you're interested in learning more about that, please reach out via our website. But yes, this is something that's in progress right now. We're working with schools on a sort of custom basis to really figure out what exactly it is their needs are. So if they're looking for sort of a 4-year track or a 1-year track, or it's specific to certain grades, we've sort of been customizing it from school to school, but currently working on sort of like a holistic program that could be offered on a plug and play basis. So definitely reach out if you're interested in learning more.
Awesome. And Ashley, when was the tryouts again? Tomorrow night, you said?
Yeah, our first episode, Level 7, airs tomorrow night. NDSAW.
It's so fun to watch. It's so fun. It makes me want to go out and fly, but for everyone's safety, start with the simulator. So we've reached the end of our session today. Elena, Ashley, thank you so much for chatting with me today. This was a lot of fun. Thank you. Attendees, you'll receive a link to access the webinar recording within a few days. In addition to this webinar, AUVSI is featuring one webinar each day this week for National Drone Safety Awareness Week. Here is a look what we have planned. Tomorrow, we have an excellent panel pulled together to discuss public safety, like we were just mentioning, drone programs, public safety, training, and safety. And on Friday, we will hear from 2 members from the Shoup Educational Foundation to learn about the importance of STEM education and what they are doing to promote it in our schools across the country. Deandra Brooks from the FAA will also be with us to moderate this webinar. You won't want to miss these, so be sure to visit our website, auvsi.org, for a complete list of upcoming webinars and services, including our upcoming webinars. As we also mentioned yesterday, and aligning well with today's theme of passion to profession, if you're a remote pilot looking to take your career to new heights, or a business looking to hire the most qualified drone operators, the AUVSI Trusted Operator Program is here for the rescue. This program is the first industry consensus certification that incorporates internationally recognized operational standards and builds on the FAA Part 107 certificate. Level 2 and Level 3 operators undergo hands-on training and testing, and all trusted operators are dedicated to safe, reliable, and professional flying. Learn more at auvsi.org/top operator. If you have additional questions or comments, please contact me at education@auvsi.org. Lastly, today's program is copyrighted by AUVSI with all rights reserved. Thank you, ladies, and have a super duper rest of your day.
Thank
you so much for having me.